So, hello and welcome to today's CPD session related to the T-level industry placement. This session is aimed at teachers and assessors of the Education and Childcare T-level, and we'll be exploring the subject in relation to how placements have been working for centres in the first year of the delivery and sharing your ideas and experiences with each other. We're also going to explore how to prepare students for their placement and how to manage placements effectively. And if you haven't already done so, please pop something in the chat box and let us know you can hear us okay. You'll find the chat box at the bottom of the webinar control panel at the right-hand side of your screen. And also the session is being recorded and it will be shared on our YouTube channel afterwards. We have created a document to support centres prepare their students for placement, a pre-placement planning document, which may help teachers to collate information which might be helpful when starting a new placement. We're going to look at the draft document later in the session, so if you haven't done so yet, please download it from the materials section of the control panel in readiness for discussion. So my name's Helen Scanlon and I'll be facilitating today's session. I'm one of NCFE's curriculum officers and I'm responsible for supporting the teaching and learning of the Education and Childcare T-level. I've supported students starting and attending placements for many years, ranging from pre-entry to master's level, and I've also been an employer with students on placement with my own company. I'm going to use my 30 years of experience of placements as the basis for today's session. We're going to be joined today by Janet King. She's the Sector Manager for Education and Childcare, and Rachel Webster, my curriculum officer colleague. Janet, are you here with us yet? Rachel, I know you are. Would you like to say hi?
Hello everybody, I'm looking forward to today's session.
Yes, it looks like we're waiting for Janet to join us. As I say, she was running from one webinar to the next. So Janet and Rachel are going to help me to manage the breakout room activities later. And Janet, when she comes, will also be able to answer any subject-specific questions. We're going to be completing a range of activities, including polls, sharing of ideas in the chat box and smaller group discussions. Can I ask everyone to be on mute for the moment, but when we move into the discussion activities, I'll be asking you to turn your microphones back on so you can talk to each other. So you can see the objectives of the session on the screen now. We know that the pandemic has caused many obstacles and challenges for providers in relation to placement component of the T-level. So we're going to focus on strategies to overcome these challenges in the hope that we can share learning and experiences to date and plan for success in the months to come. This will be particularly important as our centres progress onto Year 2 delivery. And for anyone attending today's session who is yet to start their T-level delivery, I'll be asking you to anticipate and predict what the future holds. And this should hopefully help you with your planning for your September 21 start. Okay, so putting COVID-19 restrictions aside for the moment, we're going to start with the challenges the students bring to their industry placements, and we'll explore the pandemic challenges separately. You'll see the first poll question on the screen now. I'm going to launch the poll and I'd like you to make a choice out of the options you provided. But if I've missed out your preferred choice, please choose the one you deem the most relevant and then add your preferred choice in the chat box for us. For those of you who are currently delivering Year 1, what have been the barriers? And for those who are yet to start the delivery, what do you anticipate being the main barriers? So your poll choices are the student's level of self-confidence and/or motivation. The placement choices are options and expectations, so what the students would like versus what's available. Students' fear of the placement and everything that's new about going into industry with possibly limited experience. A lack of awareness of the benefits of the placement as individuals. And then other commitments or pressures. So for example, family or work commitments, study or financial commitments. So choose the best one for yourselves, please. And as I say, if it's not there, choose one and pop something into the chat box instead. So thanks to those who voted already. This is excellent. Thank you so much. Just choose the one that you deem the most appropriate, please. Okay, we've got 80% voted. I'll just give it another couple of seconds just to allow anyone who hasn't chosen yet or any late arrivals to pop their choice in. Okay, lovely. Everybody's voted now, so thank you for that. I'm going to close the poll and share the results. So as you can see, the majority of people have said the level of self-confidence, and then we've got a very close split between all of the other areas. So yes, they're going to be relevant to individuals and very in your area, but generally the highest level is at the level of confidence. So thanks for that. All right, just to say there were no extra answers in the chat box. So if you do have any extra ideas, please pop them in. And like I said earlier, for those who are just arriving a little bit later, there is a document in the materials section of today's webinar that we'd like you to download and have access to for later on. We're going to review it. Okay, thanks. Okay, we're going to move straight into exploring the benefits of placements. I'm very much a glass half full girl, so we're going to go positive first. So I'm going to ask you as well to tell me what your ideas related to what the benefits are of attending placement, first of all, for students. So put your answers into the chat box, starting with the benefits of placements to students. So what are the benefits of attending a T-level placement for a student? And as for the previous poll question, please use your T-level experience to date if you're already delivering, and if not, please consider how attending a T-level placement might benefit future T-level students. So I'll give you a minute or two just to pop your ideas into the chat box. Lovely, people are starting to put their ideas in, thank you. So enables the student to put theory into practice, absolutely. Yes. So what they learn in the classroom, see how it actually works in real life, and then link theory to practice. I think it's most people are that's the first benefit we go to. So thanks for that. Employability skills. They could be leaving school with absolutely no work experience at all, so it'll be their first chance to develop those employability skills. And yes, thanks, Michelle. Absolutely, linking theory to practice. It's also about letting the students see that what they're being taught in the classroom actually happens for real in the work environment. I've noticed that Janet has just arrived. I said to everybody, Janet, that you're probably running late from your last webinar. So thank you for arriving. Do you want to say just a quick hi to everybody?
Hello, yes, you're absolutely right. I'm just jumping from one webinar to the next, both with equal priority, but difficult, isn't it? So hello, everybody, and apologies for being late.
Right, Bev has no sound, so I'm just going to ask her to log out and in again. Because we know that the sound's working, so it must be at Bev's end. So hopefully. Right, okay, so we've done the benefits for students. I'm now going to ask you about to consider the employers. What advantages are there for them in relation to providing an industry placement for T-level students? What would the placement, employer and their staff get out of providing a placement for T-level students? Going to finish off reading about the student ones. Thanks, Louise. Allows them to link the knowledge from the classroom to practice, employability skills and confidence. Absolutely. Lovely, thank you. So what are the benefits of a T-level industry placement for an employer, please? So lovely, thank you, Susan. Some of our employers employ the students, absolutely. So there's a chance to try before you buy sort of thing. An insight into a career, absolutely. It's a good student one, definitely. Future recruitment stream, thank you, yes, absolutely. And to see what college is teaching their future employees, yes, to get a better understanding of the qualifications, how they've moved on, possibly since they've done them, thank you. Employment at the end of the placement, absolutely. And they're provided with an extra pair of hands, absolutely, thank you, Jane. And they might want to employ them, yes. Anybody, any other ideas about the employer's benefits? and their staff, of course. Yes, lovely. Thank you, Michelle. A better understanding of the levels of course and the future employees. Yes, definitely. Okay, I'm going to keep that. Obviously, the chat box is open there, so just keep your answers and ideas coming as they arise, please. So evaluating the benefits allows us to identify how we can set up and start to manage the industry placement for the two most important stakeholders involved. If the placements are going to be successful, we'll need to stay very focused on selling them, their advantages, and what positives can be gained from engaging with them or offering them. So let's summarize the benefits for students, and most of these have already been mentioned by yourselves in the chat box. So having access to vocational technical placements which are specifically relevant to their chosen career and occupational specialism will be vital for the students to gain the experience they need to progress. But more importantly, and something all teaching staff are aware of, vital to allow the application of theory they are learning in the classroom into their practice. Having the opportunity to do this will also put them ahead of their A-level equivalent peers and of course give them better employment or progression possibilities against their peers. So the T-level qualification and industry placement also offer students a route to paid employment, something you've already mentioned. If the student is not yet ready for higher level study, the T-level also provides an entry-level qualification into many vocational areas, and the added bonus of attending a placement also allows them to access potential jobs. Placements can offer excellent networking opportunities and give students something to talk about in job applications and job interviews. The inclusion of placement allows the student to gain real-world experience in the occupational specialism they're interested in, but in a safe and supported environment. Placements also offer students the opportunity to try out working roles in different contexts and allows them to assess the best way forward for them as individuals. Because the T-levels are employer-based, designed and focused, students can be confident that the qualification offers them an excellent, relevant and high-level programme which is recognised as providing the skills, knowledge, behaviours and competencies vital in their chosen industry. They will also be able to talk about their placement experiences with future employers and demonstrate a reflective approach by evaluating what they are learning or what they did learn while they were at the placement. And the ratio of classroom-based learning with industry placement time allows the student the opportunity to learn in a supported classroom environment whilst also applying that theory that they learn into practice in the industry. They will also be able to gain extra knowledge from their placement, which they can then apply back to their T-level learning, which could also help them to gain higher grades in the TQ. The placement in the overall T-level programme is vital to prepare the students for the identified progression routes. Students who have attended their placements will be able to use that experience to help them decide on which is the best route for them. Are they ready for work? Do they want to do higher level study, or would they like to do more placement work and support via higher level apprenticeship? And finally, but possibly the most important, are the wider and softer skills gained in the workplace, as these cannot always be taught in a classroom setting. And the students who engage effectively with their placements will have the opportunity to develop and evidence these skills. This could include working independently or part of as a wider team, communicating with work colleagues and within a diverse team. They can show reliability, independence, and collaborative skills, and these are all competencies future employers are going to look for. Okay, moving on to the benefits now of employers. Having students on placement allows employers to creates a pipeline for talent for their entry-level jobs. Students can demonstrate their competencies and behaviours whilst attending a placement, and employers can assess their skills and future potential without having to commit to employing them first. So the point that was made in the chat box earlier. Which leads on to them being a cost-effective channel for recruitment. Working with schools and colleges in this way allows employers to connect with their future workforce, and they can also support their decision making by informing or guiding the students' career choices from an early stage. And linked to the last point, another benefit is that employers can develop the young people in their industry from the very start, ensuring that they gain the best skills and knowledge possible and have the competencies they need to be successful in their business. This would be the opportunity to mould future employees. The employer's existing staff can also benefit from personal development by mentoring and supporting the T-level students. This then can develop management skills within their business and increase staff morale and job satisfaction. Students on placement can be a source of new ideas or approaches. This can be invaluable for smaller businesses and provide interesting and alternative approaches from a new perspective. If employers need an extra pair of hands, students can provide support for specific projects by supporting a key task or a piece of work or a project. Placements can also provide an opportunity for improved diversity, and in turn this will also help businesses to understand the needs of their customers better, improve performance and increase innovation and creativity within the business. And finally, a commitment to providing industry placements and the opportunity for an increased sense of shared value. It can be provided by young people to develop their skills and knowledge and enhance a company's brand image and profile. This can have a local and national impact as T-levels gain more and more public exposure. Okay, we've looked at the benefits, now explore how to overcome the barriers to starting placements. As I run through this slide, if you have any experience you can share with everyone, please add them in the chat box. So what kind of barriers have your students had, or what might they have, and what kind of strategies have you used to overcome them is what we're asking for you to share. So the first point to consider might be that every student is going to be very, very different. So how will we identify individual barriers? This could be planned into IAG activities, induction, and or ongoing work with them, keeping in mind that students' circumstances will change over time, so their barriers could change too. Staff will need to develop a strong, trusting relationship with their students to build confidence and the ability to share problems as they arise. Also, other staff members, including the placement themselves, could also inform this too. But when is the best time to ascertain any barriers? Is it at the start? I've already said they're going to change throughout the programme, so is this something we'll need to do throughout the T-level programme? We should also remember that something that might be a huge barrier for a student might not be considered a barrier by us or their employers. So when it comes to being proactive or responsive, what I've already said suggests that we'll need to be both, assessing support or development needs and using the findings to alter our approach, but also responding to issues as they arise. Formative assessment activities on placement and checking progress and any changes in circumstances would be useful to plan into your curriculum on a regular basis. And also, has the placement concept been bought into by the student? How do we find this out? And if it hasn't, how do we get that buy-in? Individual students will need different input here, but the more positive we can be about them from the very first contact with them, the more likely they will be to buy into the concept. Student ownership of their placement success is going to be vital. So how might we achieve and maintain this? Students will need to take responsibility here, something which might be a challenge for 16-year-olds. So input, guidance and support related to the employability skills they'll need in the industry for success might need to be planned in for some, if not all, your students. One barrier that was brought up recently was the DBS and how centres have overcome DBS issues, students not having the required documentation to carry out the DBS. So if they don't have a birth certificate, don't have a passport, or don't have a driving licence, someone mentioned in our last webinar that they could use a fingerprint version at no extra cost. So it's something that centres have used and have looked into. But what kind of placement strategies have you used to help students overcome and break down the barriers? Just before I start going into our ideas. So while you're thinking, I'll go through some of ours, hopefully give you some ideas. So as I say, please, quick reminder, ideas from yourselves to share with each other in the chat box. So I'm going to start to explore the strategies to overcome or break down barriers that we've already talked about. I'm going to start with some reassurance here though, because industry placements are not a new concept. Students have been attending them for vocational and technical programs for many years. You'll find that some of the strategies used for other courses will absolutely work with T-level students. But there are some additional points we should make for these new, more prestigious qualifications. I'm just going to share some ideas from the chat. So a first meet and greet with yourself, being a placement assessor, tutor, and then the students to overcome any anxiety and nerves. Absolutely, thank you for that. We've also got transport issues and the cost of travel. So those are your financial considerations and where you are. Absolutely, thanks for that. Brilliant. And we've also got identify a mentor or person at the placement the student can go to or be supported by. Excellent, that's great. Thank you for that. So I'm going to talk about the levels of self-confidence and motivation first. And I don't just mean low levels here, I mean high or low levels would present barriers to attending and or being successful at their placement. Again, the reasons for these will be unique to each student, so we'll need to adapt our approach to overcoming them on an individual basis. Students may present themselves as being ready for or managing the placement fine. So we'll need to ensure that we don't make any assumptions and assess progress and attitudes regularly. Communication with students, employers and any other relevant staff or stakeholders will need to be regular, and effective working relationships with the relevant stakeholders will need to be developed to ensure the success. So checking in with everyone and actively identifying any issues and dealing with them as they arise is going to be vital. So another barrier might be their placement choices or options and expectations. So what they'd like versus what's available. Conversations about what placements are available to the students may need to take place, and some realistic and honest dialogue related to the expectations and the reality of the placement work they're going to do will better prepare the students for the placement. It might be useful to focus on the student on the benefits we've already talked about here, so that they don't start the placement expecting the world and being disappointed. Setting up the placement with the relevant people and agreeing ground rules, work activities, expectations, and possibly having an induction program will all help to stop small problems becoming bigger issues. The draft document in the resources materials section could help with this. And then we'll talk about fear of the placement and everything new about going into industry with limited experience, especially if it's going to be their first real taste of work. Talking to other students who've already started the placement might help here, and asking students to share their experience and top tips for starting placements could overcome fears. Students could also meet the staff before starting the placement, and a pre-starting a placement visit would allow them to ask questions and seek clarification on anything they're unsure of. Placement prep input and guidance will help here. And as this work has already taken place for many students, maybe a reminder might be needed before the placement starts. You could also get students to produce a preparing for placement information leaflet with tips for other students to help them overcome any starting fears. And as I said yesterday, this is something I've done as a piece of an action research project with early years and childcare students, where the level 2 students created a leaflet for their level 1 counterparts to give them an on-the-ground 16-year-old's view of what you need to know and do and don't do at placement, just to get them ready in advance. So if you want any more information about that, please ask me. And so back to focusing on the benefits, overcoming a lack of awareness of the benefits of the placement that will offer them as individuals will help them to engage with the placement. Students should see the placement as a fantastic opportunity to try out new knowledge and skills, impress a prospective employer, and learn more about the role they aspire to. If we get them excited and enthused about their placement, they will be more positive about them and have higher levels of success. And then finally, Any other commitments or pressures, so for example, family and/or work commitments, study and financial pressures, should also be explored and strategies to overcome them put in place. Students might need to work alongside their course, so we should be mindful of this and not add any further burdens on them. Initial and ongoing assessment activities would help us to identify these and use them in our planning. And let's make the T-level programme manageable by signposting to the support options and working with students as an individual, but in a collaborative manner. Okay, so thank you so much for your input here. We're now going to move into overcoming the barriers that employers bring. As previously, the majority of strategies you already use for work experience will be beneficial for T-level placements. So I'm going to ask again if you could share your ideas and experience in the chat box, please. So I'll give you a minute to think about it. What strategies have you used or might you use to overcome the barriers for employers? So while you're thinking and typing, I'm going to start off on our ideas. We're going to have to start with the pandemic. Many students have not yet been able to start a placement due to closures and different employer approaches. Another bit of reassurance here, if students have no placement hours yet, they still have sufficient time to complete them in the remaining time of this and next academic year. So approaches such as joining placement bubbles, timetabling around when the employer is able to give the placement, having some activities where students and placements kind of have contact but not in person yet would also be useful. I'm going to go through the ideas in the chat box. So thanks for that so far. So having meetings and regular contact from staff and the employers, asking what the employers would like the centre to do or the college to do, and doing some support with them and partnership working. So brilliant, thanks for that. Establishing really good and strong working links and having regular and consistent contact. And that's excellent. But what I would kind of want to ask, consistent in what? In format or in timing or both kind of thing. So thanks for that. That's brilliant. I would like to meet with our employers to introduce the T-level and the benefits they brings. Lovely, excellent. This will be COVID-19 restrictions dependent, yes. So it might have been that you would have an employer meet and greet session, but you can't do it. So you might need to do that virtually instead of in person. So thanks for that so far. So one thing I will say that some students have been able to gain some experience, and there are some great strategies centre staff have used already to make this possible. So flexibility has been a key successful approach. Allowing employers to set the hours, the days and the mode of attendance has proven effective. For example, having students join in placement staff team bubbles and building their curriculum around the available placement days and times. More online catch-up learning might be needed if classroom teaching was planned for the times the employer is able to take the students in their workplace. So it's something to factor into your curriculum. But basically flexibility in the teaching approach is probably what's going to be needed here. You've already said in the chat box there, building effective and collaborative working relationships with the placement staff will help the students and staff to engage with your centre and the T-level students, of course. We could ask students to create a personal statement they can provide for the placement, an overview of their strengths, what they could bring to the placement or what attracts them to the industry, to starting to develop the relationship between the placement staff and the student, which also takes us to employer involvement. Let them know as much as you can about the T-levels as possible and inform them of the skills, knowledge and competencies the students should be developing with their help and input. Remind them about the employer involvement in creating and developing the T-level programs, and reinforce how important the placement aspect of the course is. When employers feel involved, they'll buy into the placement better, and in turn this will help your students to stay on track and focused on developing their skills and industry knowledge. So reminders of the benefits should also help to keep the employers on board. Perhaps having some promotional materials for employers would be useful, outlining the T-level programme and how vital their role is in this new exciting academic qualification. Remember the positives of having that extra pair of hands. If employers say they don't have the time for a student, remind them with a little upfront work, students would then be an asset and possibly increase staff capability and work productivity. Just going back to the chat box because more ideas are coming in. So thank you for that, for those people putting the answers in. That's excellent. Your ideas are coming through thick and fast. So completed training prior to starting, such as health and safety, first aid, etc. Absolutely. So what you can get done in-house that would help the student on placement and also help sell that placement to the employer. Brilliant ideas there, thank you. And then we've got centres considering block placements. Settings seem to be more receptive to this in this current time, yes, and there have been already. Really good point. This limits the movement between college or school, home and placement, especially at the moment. Absolutely. So if you can ask students to join placement bubbles and limit the other work, the other commitments, it's a definite positive. So thank you for that. Brilliant. Please do keep your ideas coming in the chat box. I am going to collect them all up and share them with everybody who's attended today's session after it. Okay, we're going to pause for a second poll now, and one of the items we're going to cover today is how to ensure success on placement. But what does industry placement success actually look like for a student? I've got another poll that I'm going to launch, and what I'd like you to do is choose your version of what student success on placement is, and your choices should be in front of you now. Would it be the student turning up and doing some work? Would it be regular attendance and acceptable work ethic? Would it be regular attendance and a positive attitude towards the work? Would it be very good attendance, attitude, reliability in the work ethic? Or would it be outstanding attendance, work ethic and reliability? So please choose whichever one you think you would deem placement success for a student would actually look like. So thanks to those who voted already. A quick reminder, if you haven't already found the draft document in the materials section, to please download it and get it available to yourselves for the breakout room for the activity we're going to move into. So we're at 80% already. Excellent, we're nearly there. So if you haven't chosen yet, please choose your preferred option for placement success. I'll give it another couple of seconds just to give everybody the chance. Okay, I'm going to close it now and I'll share the results. As you can see, the majority of people said very good attendance. They chose number 4. And then we had some people regular and some people outstanding. So we're kind of getting down to our own expectations here and what placement success looks like. And in my experience of placements, as I say, right across the levels, I would say all of those have been a sign of success for different students at different times. We'll talk about that a little bit more moving on. So it's clear that as individuals, what is success for one student won't be the same for all students. What we'd like as teachers is probably at least number 3 or above, but we need to be prepared that for some students it might start off lower. However, as T-levels are new and prestigious, And as some centres have set higher entry requirements, we might consider that the students might be of a higher calibre, and students who might be at the lower end of this scale might need the transition programme to prepare them for the challenges of a T level. I'm going to bring in those expectations again here. If we set them at a high level for all components of the T level, then students may be more likely to meet them. We could therefore set the scene as early as possible in relation to our expectations of the student regarding the industry placement component, and during advice and guidance, course initial assessment and induction activities, we can make it clear that what we're looking for and what we're expecting. I'd like you to consider what your students would say if they were asked that same question to define placement success, if they were given those same options. Also consider the best way to communicate these expectations and how to assess and monitor them throughout the programme. Again, please share any ideas in the chat box and keep them in mind for the group discussion we're going to move into shortly. So please consider, how do you or how does your centre define placement success, assess placement readiness, assess placement progress, review the placement support requirements, and of course, record everything, the starting points, the progress, the successes and any interventions, as well as who is or who has been involved, and a review of success and further work. Strategies used for other courses, which include placements, can be adapted and used for T-levels. Feedback from centres who are having placement success has been reassuring. They have been using very similar strategies for their T-level as for their other level 3 courses. Overall, the advice would be to communicate clearly, honestly and regularly with all of the relevant stakeholders, and remember to record and review everything on a regular basis. You could have a set of expectations at important milestones, with the plan being that the students' progress towards the summative assessment activities in Year 2 is being monitored, with interventions and stretch and challenge activities planned in. Okay, you can see on the screen now the draft document I've been mentioning throughout the webinar. You'll find it in the materials section of today's webinar control panel. Please download it if you haven't already. It has been developed as a pre-placement planning document, which we'd like to ask you to review and discuss in the breakout room or discussion activity. How could it be used, and how might you adapt or use it for T-level industry placements? So Janet and Rachel, with the numbers today, I was just going to say we could stay together here rather than go into separate rooms. I believe we've got low enough numbers to do that. So I'm going to ask Janet now to talk about some subject-specific or occupational specialism requirements which might impact on the content of this form just before we go into the discussion activity.
Thanks, Helen. Yeah, I think when we look at some of those main points on that form, I'm just looking now at headings for learning goals, employability, technical skills. Those are the ones that kind of jump out to me really in terms of early years educator criteria, for example, or the skills that are needed to be able to work as a teaching assistant. So it's thinking about those, and I think there's been so much this year. I think there's so much going on with pandemic and preparation and so on, that thinking about preparing and working in that preparation sort of mode is probably where most people have been. So I think specific learning goals for employability within sector, and then having the technical skills, you know, maybe working towards those, using the skills that are within the education and childcare qualification as a guide would be really good.
Lovely, thank you for that, Janet. I can see Karen's got a hand up. If everybody would like to unmute themselves. If you've got a question, Karen, fire away.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realise I had my hand up. Sorry, no question.
Oh, righty-ho. Okay, so as I say, we're moving on to discuss this form now. Has anybody not seen it, or has anybody not got it, first of all? Has everybody got access to it? Right, so everyone's got access to it. Lovely. Just bear with me a second. start recording again and we'll move on. And I've just noticed someone's just put something in the chat there to share, so that's great. Another system you heard of, have used is ProSuite. Yes, I think I've heard of ProSuite as well, Rachel. So yes, Navigator, Growfar, ProSuite, there are a number of different types of platforms and apps you can use, but I think what's really important, this form that we've put up there, like Janet said, it will be organic and it shouldn't just be completed and then sort of stuffed away somewhere. I think the other miscellaneous box, I would like to have the students set some employability goals, or where are you at now, so that you can reflect back on all the things that you said you were going to do. And then those learning goals with the TQ references, progress against them is going to be quite important to track. So they may be linked to the elements of the TQ. They may be linked to specific elements as you go through your curriculum, depending on how you how the curriculum is designed, because they might, the staff might work through 6 of the elements in the first term and another 6 in the second term. The placement needs to know that what's the student going to be learning in school or college while they're at the placement, so that they're aware of which elements and areas and skills and knowledge areas that are being worked on. So any other questions or comments? Okay, we are going to leave the chat box open, so please be aware that if you think of any questions as we close off the session today, that you can still put them in there. I would really like you to consider what you'll take away from today's session. If you're able to, please pop it into the chat box, but it's more for you. What are you going to take away from this session that you've learned, or that you've been reminded of or picked up from others? And then what are you going to do with it to make any CPD sessions meaningful? We should focus on how you're going to action the learning from the webinar. So yes, what you've got from your, what takeaways have you got, but how are you going to actually use it? Set yourself some kind of goals to, I'm going to action it by X, Y, and Z. I'm going to do it by a such and such date, and I'm going to check how it's impacted on my practice. I'm just going to share something from a participant here. Thank you. I think the more that can be done remotely in the current climate is better. Yes, definitely. And as an assessor, this participant is looking at COVID safe ways of assessing in the placement and planning remotely with the students to minimise face-to-face contact wherever possible. And I think totally right, 100% agreed there, because even as the restrictions go, we'll still have to be mindful and aware of keeping those safe, the hands, face, space, guidance, that we're going to have to keep that going. So if you can do it remotely, why not? Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. We do have further CPD sessions coming, so I'm going to share them with you now. For September 2020 T-level starts, we have another session which is an induction checkpoint, choice of 2 there on the 14th and 19th of April, which will probably focus on preparing for the tags, preparing for the occupational specialists that can help us with year 2. We've got a session on avoiding assessment malpractice. There's 2 choices of those in April as well. I am going there with maths skills. Maths is fun and should be, it shouldn't be scary. So we're going to do a fun session on maths, a couple of sessions in May. And then Janet and I are going to be working together for an occupational specialism delivery session for planning for year 2, as you can see the dates in June there. For our 2021 starts, we've got a half-day workshop being planned for the 27th of April. And the 27th of April session is the education and childcare one. There are also the same sessions being developed for digital on the 29th of April, and the health and science on the 30th of April. And then we've also got a centre induction session for education and childcare on the 15th of June. They're all on our website. You'll have access to them via your account executives. And all of our webinars, I need to say, are recorded and made available after the event. So if you see something that you'd like to do or that you want to do, but you can't make those days or times, as you know, the sessions are recorded to share. So all we have to say now is thank you all so much for attending and participating so well in the session today. Please take a minute to complete our evaluation as you log out. Your feedback and ideas do help us to develop our CPD offer, so we do ask you for your feedback. I've also included on the page on the screen now links to the T-level support pages. I'm going to let Rachel and Janet say their farewells before I finish off. Janet?
Thank you. Just to say, have a lovely rest of the day, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you're going to get some rest and recuperation at Easter. And so have a lovely Easter break. Thanks, Helen. Thanks, Rachel.
Yes, thank you, everybody. It's been really interesting just listening to everybody's ideas and thoughts. And good luck. Good luck with the new students you're going to have coming on board and with all your planning.
Absolutely, thanks for that, Rachel. So I'm going to say goodbye from everybody at NCFE Cash. Please stay safe, and we do look forward to working with you again. As I say, the chat box will remain open for a bit longer. So if you have any other questions, comments, please pop them in on your way out. And as I say, another reminder just to fill in our valuation as you go. So thank you. As I say, we're just going to stay and we'll keep chatting until everybody's gone. Thank you, Alison. You're very welcome. Lovely. Thank you, Jane. You're a star. Lovely. Thanks, Louise. Louise is definitely going to be using the documents. That's great. Use it as the basis. And thank you, Bev. You're a star. Everyone's a star. And everything I've said from the employer's perspective has definitely come from, I mean, I had my own business for 7-8 years. And as I say, I had students on placement with me. So that's all coming from my experience of having students on placement. And I had a range of students on placement. You know, you have the blessing, the good, the bad and the ugly, don't you? So yes. Thank you, Michelle. Yes, it is always great to share ideas, and Michelle's thanking Janet and Rachel as well. So thank you for that, Michelle.